5 witnesses, Ms Janette Vonthenthoff, Ms Carmel Underwood, Mr Paul Schofield, Mr Kevin Mackey and Mr James Anderson. We started a little late, so we're about 10 minutes behind our scheduled time. Where else saying nothing? They've got until 10:45. This is what it is. Well, I welcome the Roundtable participants to today's hearing. Before inviting you to make an opening statement, I'd like to remind you that the terms of reference of this inquiry are limited to the examination of the provisions of the Tax Laws Amendment Public Benefits Test Bill 2010. The committee acknowledges that there's been public commentary concerning particular organisations. However, the operation of individual organisations is not within the terms of reference of this committee, and the committee does not have the authority to deliberate on such matters because they are not relevant to the purpose of this bill. I ask all members of the committee and Roundtable to ensure that questions and comments are relevant to the terms of reference of this inquiry. These are public proceedings, although the committee may agree to a request to have evidence heard in camera or may determine that certain evidence should be heard in camera. I remind all witnesses that in giving evidence to the committee, they are protected by parliamentary privilege. It is unlawful for anyone to threaten or disadvantage a witness on account of evidence given to a committee. Such action may be treated by the Senate as a contempt, and it is also a contempt to give false or misleading evidence to a committee. So, would you like to make an opening statement? Do you have a spokesperson, or are you individually going to make opening statements?
Individually.
Okay then. We'll start on the right-hand side then.
Yeah, can I just raise a preliminary point further to your opening? I think Dr. Much in his evidence said that in framing the regulations or determining a public benefit test, it may be relevant to look at the behaviour of an organisation or systemic issues. So I think that's, I'm not sure what the views of the committee are in relation to that. I won't take it any further at this stage, but I just...
The views of the committee are that we're here to deal with the terms of reference of the committee.
Very well. Thank you, Chair.
All right. On behalf of the 5 of us here, I'd like to thank the committee for extending an invitation to us to appear here today for this discussion. I'd like to begin by detailing why I personally believe that a public benefit test on tax-exempt organisations is needed in Australia, and I would like to quote a few personal anecdotes on this, if that's fine with the committee. I believe these are necessary for the argument that I'm about to present. In February 2000, my 15-month-old daughter Lauren was rushed to hospital in Sydney with injuries that subsequently claimed her life. Friends, family and the medical staff rallied to our side during the 2 days she clung to life, and enormous, unexpected help in those very trying days was Ronald McDonald House, who provided my wife, my 1-month-old son and myself with accommodation so that we could be close to Lauren during her final hours. For us, this was a godsend that a for-profit multinational had sponsored this service for parents with hospitalised children. Excuse me. Contrast this to the subsequent actions of Scientology. I will detail only one instance. When my wife and I sought compensation for our loss of our beloved daughter. We were informed by Scientology officials that, should we claim against Scientology insurers for our loss, we would be suing the Church for Scientology, and thus, per Scientology's own policy, become ineligible for further Scientology services, effectively expelling us from Scientology. As a result, we didn't pursue the claim.
Mr. Schofield, would you prefer this evidence to be given in camera?
That's fine. I'm quite okay with continuing, Chair, if that's okay.
Okay.
We have some fantastic organisations in this country that are tax exempt, and rightly so, I believe. Australia is truly a lucky country, and us Aussies have always been generous in sharing that luck with those less fortunate. One of my nieces recently returned from Sri Lanka, where she worked as the chief nurse in a refugee camp for Médecins Sans Frontières, and another and her parents have spent much time and energy helping Hope for Cambodian Children, a very worthy charity. And who could forget groups like Anglicare, which recently provided a brilliant program for my son and other boys his age called Boys Will Be Men, and the Salvos, and many, many more. Many of these groups have raised valid concerns. Yes?
If I might say so, I've just been advised by the Secretary that because you have made remarks that reflect on Scientology, the committee should go into camera, and so to consider this. So I'd like to call a private meeting of the committee, and we will now do that. The committee is temporarily suspended.
Okay.
Could we just go this back? In this hearing, the committee is concerned about some of the evidence that might be given in this session and in general throughout the day, and we want to make it clear that we are not prepared to accept evidence about matters which are before the courts or sub judice. We would prefer that evidence given deals with general issues and principles. It must be understood that this committee cannot deal with and cannot judge individual cases or individual matters, and the committee would prefer that evidence given relates to matters of principle that can be considered in terms of a public benefit test for a charity. So having stated those points, the committee will now proceed again. The committee has decided not to go into camera at this stage. So if you'd like to continue, Mr. Schofield.
Okay. Is it okay if I quote media reports and such as part of my argument?
If it's within the context of those points we've raised, you cannot quote media reports about matters which are sub judice.
Okay, thank you. Many of these groups have raised valid concerns. These are charity groups that I've previously mentioned, about a proposed public benefits test for tax-exempt organisations. Submissions number 37 by the Anglican Diocese of Armidale and number 63 by the Australian Catholic Bishops' Conference are good examples of these. On the other hand, there are instances of abuses by tax-exempt organisations like those raised in submission number 39 by Graham Webber, detailing the horrors of the Orders of St Chabelle. There's also Brian Seymour's excellent expose on Channel 7 last Tuesday night of how Scientology in the United Kingdom and elsewhere are avoiding paying tax, but there by using a basically non-existent charity registered here in South Australia. And there's the recent example also in South Australia of the Agape group, that their name means love in Greek is in sharp contrast to the arsenal of weapons confiscated from their properties during recent police raids. Even Scientology's own submission to this inquiry, number 66, helps highlight the need for further regulation in this area, I believe. It makes much of Scientology's volunteer ministers program. Now, Scientology volunteer ministers are required to buy their own T-shirts, jackets and other paraphernalia from Scientology, and also do a short course on Scientology costing several $100s, at which point they are qualified to be a volunteer minister. They usually have to pay their own airfare to and from a disaster area and make their own arrangements for food and accommodation once there.